Welcome back to Get Down to Business. As promised, I'm thrilled to be joined by Doug Branson, the W. Edward Sell Chair at the University of Pittsburgh. He's been a visiting professor at Cornell University, Universities of Washington and Hong Kong, and Melbourne University, among others. Doug, thank you so much for joining me on the program.
Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So your new book is The Future of Tech is Female, How to Achieve Gender Diversity. Tell me what inspired you to write this book.
Well, a couple things. I'm a father of two daughters, and pardon me, I think most fathers of daughters these days want their daughters to be able to do anything their sons could do. And the second thing is that I had a colleague who wrote about how women are judged differently because they respond in a different register. They don't use imperatives as much. They use more suggestive language, and that's often interpreted as they're more emotional or they're more analytical. And that doesn't mean anything. There's no connection between the two. She wrote in the area of criminal law about Miranda warnings and other interrogation techniques used with criminal defendants, and I thought the same thing applies in corporate law and corporate governance with senior executives and directors. So that started me about 20 years ago, and actually this is the third book. I have two other books in the field that were written in 2007 and 2010, and I've spoken all over the world about this subject.
You sure have. So there are certain industries in particular. I'm going to point my finger at technology. Tech is Exhibit A in the corporate failure to hire and promote women. There are many, many, many obstacles to women advancing from entry level to C-suite. So, what do you have to say to the folks in leadership in the tech world? How can they start to evaluate and adopt specific procedures and programs designed to hire and support women?
Well, first of all, we have to shift the focus. The focus has always been on what women can do, be more aggressive, network, get mentors. Some of them are, some of the advice books are actually very juvenile, lower your voice, watch Monday Night Football. And the corporate side, the employer side, nothing is ever mentioned. And so they get away with expressing some noble sentiments, and that's it. So my book is really about how to achieve gender diversity in a wide variety of settings, and information technology is really used as an example because it has the worst record of any industry in hiring and promoting women. But so I have a number of techniques that corporations should consider, gathered from a wide variety of sources: Australia, New Zealand, Hong Kong, England, Norway, France. And so it's time that we pushed companies and industries to do something about relaxing the barriers that prevent women from progressing upward in their organizations.
Yeah, so your message essentially is that it's the firms themselves that hire, and that's where the responsibility lies to increase the hiring and promotion of women. So I'm curious, why do so many leaders in industry have 10 ears on the subject of diversity?
I think that they're obtuse. They have a tin ear, and the tin ear is allowing them to continue to do what they did 40 or 50 years ago, and that is hire and especially promote people who look like themselves. So 50 years ago, 40 years ago, it was persons who wore the same type clothing. They called them 42 longs. They bought their suits at Brooks Brothers. They wore rep ties. They used sports metaphors to describe these people. They're quarterback types. They are people able to throw the knockout punch. They can shoot the three. And here we come 40 or 50 years later, and it's the same kind of attitude, but maybe applied a little more internally rather than externally. So in information technology, for example, the people who get promoted are the people who look just like the superiors internally. So they're to use a bad word, maybe nerds and geeks and people that remind the people in ascendancy of what they might have been like when they were younger. And that it just, the system seems to be perpetuating itself. So it's time for industry to stop just spouting noble sentiments and get in place some programs and talk about some things that actually will result in more progress on these issues.
I'm chatting with Doug Branson, the author of the new book, The Future of Tech is Female, How to Achieve Gender Diversity. And Doug, you have traveled around the world, quite literally speaking, consulting all over the place. But you've also seen, I understand, that other countries outside of the United States have better programs effectively repairing gender imbalance. Where should the United States and our companies be looking? And give us some of those examples.
Well, Norway was the first to adopt a quota law in 2003. And they said that by 2007, 40% of the directors of publicly held companies had to be of the opposite sex. They don't even specify male or female. They're bred in the bone, gender neutral. And about 7 or 8 jurisdictions in the European community have followed that. France, Germany, it's a 30% quota. The Netherlands, Italy. By contrast, United Kingdom has absolutely refused to think even about a quota law, and instead they have a pledge program, and they also have a comply or disclosure regulation through the stock exchanges. Many countries do not have an SEC like we do. The regulatory function is in the stock exchange and the securities exchanges. So comply or explain, pledge programs. If we look at Australia, about 2011, they instituted an added component to mentoring programs. I mean, the complaint is that mentoring is recommended over and over and over again, and it leads nowhere. People say, women say, I've been mentored to death for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, and I haven't progressed at all. So in Australia, they combined a mentoring program with a sponsorship program. And 67 of the 100 largest corporations in Australia's board chairs agreed to mentor and then sponsor a woman to become a director of a publicly held entity in Australia. So the mentoring plus sponsorship is an idea.
Sure.
Another idea that is floated frequently is the structured search, that there are no quotas, but there are requirements that in the penultimate stage of hiring, like what my students would call the callback stage, you include a minority person. It has an actual on-site visitation, not a conference phone call, not something strictly on paper, but that a minority person or a person of the opposite gender be included in the final list, and that's proven very successfully. Well, it's proven successful. I will subtract the very, but in the National Football League, and they're expanding it to other positions. So those are some of the ideas that are in the book.
That's very helpful. And in our minute remaining, I'm curious, a lot of the conversation throughout this country is the solution is STEM. We hear that acronym all the time: science, technology, engineering, and math. We've got to teach STEM incentives. We've got to put in these programs, and that will fix the gender gap. What do you have to say to all those that are pushing that message?
Now, what do I think? Say the last line again, please.
Regarding the STEM incentives that are being pushed around the country.
The STEM incentives. I think that's an oversold idea, and I think corporate America is complicit in it, because the costs of doing that are not borne by corporate America. They're borne by colleges and universities and down into high schools. And In my studies, I've studied 27 women who've become senior executives, a paltry number in information technology. 25 of them have law degrees or MBAs. Only 2 have STEM backgrounds. And if we broaden that to a couple of studies I've done of female CEOs, it's similar. Over 70% of them have MBAs or law degrees, and only, I think, 5 or 6 of the total have STEM-type degrees. So STEM might lead you to a first job and a first promotion, but beyond that, you would be too lopsided with a STEM-only background, and you need leavening, you need business background, you need managerial accounting,
Sure.
you need English language and further communication skills.
Well, Doug Branson, I'm going to have to leave it there. We are out of time, but The Future of Tech is Female, that's the name of the book, and appreciate all of the background on this very, very critical topic. Doug Branson, where can people learn more about the book?
Okay, great. Amazon. It's on Amazon. And the NYU Press in New York, they have a website as well.
Perfect. Check out the book, The Future of Tech is Female. Doug Branson, thank you so much for joining me on the air. Get down to business. We'll be right back.